We are pregnant! I don't like it. Okay.
You scared?
I'm scared. I'm gonna take a seat over there. We're pregnant. I have wanted to share with you guys every step of the way, but it is a very big challenge for me not to utilize this platform as like a personal diary or as a therapy session. So I always try to understand and go through things first before I explain them to you, so I'm not freaking you out or, you know, sharing emotional alarmist information. And if I would have made this video a month ago,
it would have been interesting.
So we're gonna tell you about those interesting times now that we have gotten through some of the harder parts. And we're so thrilled to share this news with you, to everybody who has been on this journey with us, to everybody who's been supportive. Thank you for being a part of our family. Because we now have a family!
Yeah, that wasn't as good as my yo.
It wasn't.
I'm a daddy. Can't lie after that, I swear I kinda panicked. Can I love enough? Cause the parents do the most damage.
So we're gonna have a baby.
Yeah, what was your first reaction?
For a while, I didn't think it was possible.
To get pregnant?
You know what it is, and this is something that...
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Jared, it took us a minute.
It took us 6 months.
Yeah. I think the statistic, and I'll pull this up, is 40% will get pregnant the first month, and then it's like 50, and it keeps going up until by 6 months, 80% of couples should have conceived.
Yeah.
So we were really hitting up against that statistic, and so I'm grateful that you, this entire time, even that video that we did, you've just been so nonchalant, you've taken the pressure off of it. But because my biological clock is ticking, because I'm the one who's spent the past 16 plus years taking some form of birth control, I just had more anxiety around if this was possible for me. So when it's hard to say though.
It never crossed my mind.
Really?
No, it never crossed my mind that you would not be able to conceive. It just never. I always felt like maybe.
It crossed some people in your family's mind.
Who?
I'm not gonna say names, but like we were out at Thanksgiving and somebody kind of made a comment to me like,
who? When?
At Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah, off the record. If we edit out, who?
It's fine. It's people saying things out of love. They're trying to, but it is frightening. And at the end of the day, I got so much comfort out of what you said in the last video. Oh, if we don't have a baby the way that we saw, or that my mom did, or the way that I expected to have it, that I'm going to feel not as magical.
A lot of people can have a baby, but it's very hard to raise a kid. So that should be the focus. Like, how magical did you raise that kid?
If we fast forwarded, we got pregnant February the 19th is when I found out. My period wasn't actually due until the 25th or 26th. So we still had a bit of a ways to wait to ensure that, because a lot of miscarriages will happen when your first period happens. So a lot of people don't even necessarily know that they did miscarry because it's just they had a heavier period. So we had to be, on the lookout for a chemical pregnancy. But at the same time, it was great because it gave us this sort of like every day felt like Christmas.
Yeah.
When I think back on that, like just peeing on the stick every day, it getting darker and darker and more real.
Yeah.
And getting closer to the date and it just feeling more real. There wasn't this whole coronavirus pandemic scare happening at the time.
Yeah.
So we just got to live in the joy of the pregnancy. I'm so grateful that you, throughout this, have just been optimistic and easygoing about it. Maybe there's something to be said about you not personally getting pregnant, so it's not your body, so the stress is less.
And the hormones are different. Probably not
the hormones are different, but also too, you definitely are more of a relaxed person. Your quote that I always get credit for.
Oh yeah.
But I did not do that. I worried the entire time, and mainly because, so week 5, so about a week after my missed period is when
COVID hit.
Not even that. I started having those terrible symptoms. So I was at work for sexology. So I had really bad cramps to the point that I was up all night. Like there was one day that I was working that I probably slept 3 hours maximum. And I remember, obviously reading all the forums and researching, and I was up all night reading, and I was like, cramps are a sign of miscarriage. And so I was like, okay. And then I started to spot as well too. It wasn't bright blood. It was like a brown, sort of tannish blood, but every time I went to the bathroom, I would spot. And then I went to work and I had whiteouts, where I would almost have these like hypoglycemic attacks, where I'd be standing up and I would start to see white spots, and I couldn't eat at all. I felt really sick. I started to get back pains, and if you've ever been pregnant before, you've probably read miscarriage symptoms and check. I see myself as somebody who always eventually gets what I want, but I have to go through the hard route first. It has to be difficult. There has to be obstacles. There has to be failure. Like my whole life has been that story. So when I was seeing myself as miscarrying, I was like, well, this makes perfect sense. I struggled to get pregnant, and now the first success we have is not going to work out.
I mean, well, before we went to the doctor, that's when COVID-19 hit, and that was just like another added layer of stress, because then it was like, okay, if Shannon or I got sick, what does this mean for the baby, especially this early in when it's developing? Like, how can it survive that? That's something that we're not even aware of or understand.
Yes.
And so it was just like super stressful. Every time I went to the grocery store, every time I went out, there was like a layer of guilt. There was a layer of like, I don't know, it was just scary. And then we went to the hospital, which was the worst thing in the world, because we wanted to go and see if the baby was okay. And we went to the hospital knowing that everybody with COVID is going to the hospital. So it's just like, and then they wouldn't let me into the hospital to see if the baby was okay. Shan had to FaceTime me, and even in that first doctor visit, she recognized the spotting. She said that there is some internal bleeding that is happening, and that we should take a watch out for it, because that is the sign of miscarriage. So it was just like, we left the doctor with no peace other than the fact that we saw
the baby had a heartbeat.
Yeah, the baby had a heartbeat. But then I got to a place where I was just kind of like, it's not worth it, it's not fun, and it just doesn't go with anything that I'm about. I'm all about taking everything face value for what it is and experiencing it for now. And I found that like I was robbing my joy thinking of all the negatives.
Yes.
And it didn't change whether it was going to be positive or not. If my attitude towards it didn't change whether you had a baby or not. And so, you know, that's kind of how like my mindset was in it. It was just kind of like, let go of that worry. And because right now the test is saying positive. So experience that, enjoy that, have fun in that, and tell yourself that you are pregnant now, until somebody or something tells you that you're not.
Yes.
You know?
The day that we were going for our week 8 ultrasound, and up until that point, I had the spotting, I had the cramps. The one good thing that I had going for me is that I felt like complete shit. And my breasts were so painful that if a breeze went by, I would have sworn that they would have fallen off. Like they just ached and hurt so bad. So that, as long as you don't feel well, that is a sign that you are still pregnant. They say that one of the things to watch out for is when all pregnancy symptoms subside. But the day of the appointment, you're just sort of faced with this, like, we could really, and again, I read so many different forums, which in many ways is helpful and maybe some ways is not helpful.
I don't think it is.
It is helpful because you just have to be aware of the realities, and I'm not somebody who benefits from the mind frame that, well, that's their story, not mine. I never think of myself as the exception, not the rule. So I'm like, if that could happen to this person, it could happen to me. In the forums, they said that a lot of people went to their week 8 ultrasound and they found that baby had no heartbeat and it had just stopped growing, like you said. So I remember that day not being excited about this appointment at all. I was terrified. And so I was on the stairs, bawling my eyes out, and you know, you had said to me that line of, no matter what happens in the future, nothing will ever change that you are pregnant right now. This very moment, you have a life inside of you that depends on you, that wants you to be happy and optimistic and healthy, and the future is something separate. Nothing, no matter how bad it gets, and I can't promise you a perfect future, but I can promise you that you are pregnant right now, here in this moment. Reality versus expectation of having a pregnant woman around.
No, this is all realities. It's all this exactly what I thought it was gonna be. They don't do much. They can't do much, and they say a lot. So So yeah, I think Shan gets very tired very quickly. And yeah, it's just, it exposes the weaknesses in the household when the woman gets pregnant. It exposes how dirty the man is. It exposes how, the household just kind of gets a little reckless. It doesn't help that we're in quarantine, but as soon as Shan got pregnant, it seemed like our house got an explosion, so I don't really know what happened there. But yeah, so I just would say everything you thought it would be, probably what it is. And I know it's probably only going to get worse.
I think it's going to get better. I think it's gotten better.
No, because
Hasn't it gotten better?
Yes, it has gotten better, but you're not showing. It's probably going to get worse because I'm going to physically see you being pregnant. So when that is happening, I'm going to want to do more. I'm going to want to be like, stay off your feet, sit down.
I don't think that a pregnancy can get any worse than it was. And we actually
That's so naive.
I know it's naive, but Jared, I've never experienced anything worse in my life.
And you haven't experienced further down the line.
Well, that's what I mean. Up until it's if it gets worse, they say first is the worst. Like I never felt from weeks 5 to 9, which probably isn't that bad because after week 9 I started to get reprieve. So I'm gonna say from weeks 5 to 9, constant, never-ending suffering. I remember we got into this argument because you and me went for a walk and I was like really out of breath and really tired, and Jared said to me like, why are you so tired?
I didn't say it like that. I was joking.
Can I tell you?
I didn't say it like that.
Steaming mad I was. Completely steaming mad. And I think that a lot of that comes from the hard part about it comes from the hormones for sure. I definitely have cried a lot and felt a lot more rage than I usually do, but when you're in the first trimester and you're experiencing so many symptoms of pregnancy, but nobody can physically see that on you, you just don't get the same sympathy, you don't get the same acknowledgement. You did pick up the slack and do all the housework, and you did rub me, and we can even talk about the sex. That was out the window. You just like accepted that and never put pressure on me to be anything but what I was capable of being that given day. So I think that, but I don't think you could ever fully understand what it was like for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So then that's your reality. Was it what you expected? Was it reality versus what was the question?
Way worse than I expected.
Okay.
There's no way. You just honestly, and maybe you're not supposed to, and I think the reason why people announce second trimester is because they, one, could talk about it in past tense. 2, it's just like a different energy, because you can get through it, and I'm alive, and I look fine, and like I'm fine, and I'm through it. But like when you're really in it, and you're feeling so bad week 5, and someone says to you, by week 14, you'll feel better.
I am 10 weeks pregnant today. Holy fuck.
How has this experience changed your perception of our relationship?
It hasn't really changed the perception of our relationship, to be honest with you. It's changed the perception of your family in a weird way. Because, I guess there's something different to be like the father-in-law or the mother-in-law or like the sister-in-law. There's like a connection or like a tie to it, but it's not really a tie. But now you're the grandfather to my kid, or now it's different. I just feel like we entered a different level.
Yeah.
With your family. But with you, I don't feel like it's like made it to. I felt like the same. I felt like you were my life partner from before, and now it just reassures that, But it doesn't really change the perspective of the relationship. What about you?
I think I've just grown in appreciation.
Yeah.
Today I was listening to that gospel song, Never Would Have Made It.
Oh yeah.
And I was just in tears.
Really?
Because it's how I feel about you. It's just...
Don't say, can't put that up there.
Why? It's
talking about God.
It doesn't... I mean, we have our belief system in God, but I... Honestly, the love that I have for you is the closest I can compare to that kind of love.
Yeah.
What you are to me, who you are in my life, how I feel seen by you, the appreciation that I feel, the self-love that I feel in reflection to how you love me. Like, that's why that song makes me feel like this is talking about what we share.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing is incredible. You're growing a life. It's a miracle. It's super hot, super sexy, and I'm glad that you're having our child. I think it's gonna be exciting.
I'm glad that you're glad that I'm having our child.
I'm grateful. I'm happy.
I'm very grateful for your sperm too.